Okay, so I'm going to give a little quick tour of various anatomy structures over a series of videos, and this is the first one. And what we're using here is Visible Body Human Anatomy Atlas 2, which is available on iOS devices, and recording that via Camtasia Studio for Mac. And so, in case you're interested in technically how we're doing that, Human Anatomy Atlas 2, the Visible Body, can be purchased. The entire package is currently $29 in the iOS App Store. Well worth it for any of our students going on paramedic or other allied health professions. At the EMT level, it's very interesting, and if you certainly want to dig into anatomy, this is a great tool to use for that. But at least in these first few videos, I just want to show just kind of show you around and use this tool to illustrate some of the structures in 3D that are a little more clear when we do it this way than in just 2D. So at the EMT and EMR level, we're looking for you to know cranium, the entire range of the skull here is cranium. Having trouble getting my things to show here. Cranium, there we go. So there are different regions of the cranium, temporal, occipital, parietal, and I'll show you those in a separate video when we come back and dig deeper. But basic for the basic EMR, EMT level anatomy, intro to human anatomy stuff, we're just talking about cranium as the main skull bone for you to know. Then mandible, the jawbone, becomes very important with airway management. If you can take the mandible and if you can find a way to displace the mandible in this direction, you can open airways in most cases, and so you'll end up doing a jaw thrust by placing hands on either side there, and that works pretty well. Bear with me while I get my things to work here. So there's mandible, and then here's maxilla, and it's essentially continuous bone. I'm just able to show it one side or the other, and that's the main primary bone of your face. Then, so that's the three we're looking for. We're looking for mandible, the maxilla, and then cranium as a whole. And then, as I said, we'll talk about the frontal, the occipital, the temporal, and we'll go in and we'll talk about zygomatic arch and some stuff like that in a more detailed look down the road. Okay, so for our main purposes here, for EMR and EMT, I want to point out a structure right here. This is called the foramen magnum. And that's the only hole in the skull, and that is where the spinal cord comes out. And so as you start to get swelling inside your skull, there's really no place for that swelling to go. If you were to have a bruise on your arm, then your skin can stretch, and there can be some swelling there that's not going to compress structures underneath the injury. But in the brain, there's really no place for it to go, because your skull is really only supposed to have brain matter and blood inside blood vessels and a very small amount of cerebrospinal fluid. That's all it's supposed to be up there. No tumors, no blood outside of the blood vessels. And so when you do have something, blood outside the blood vessels, tumors, whatever, you have things, something other than those three things that are supposed to be up there, and you're going to get some swelling, which is going to compress on that brain tissue, and compressed brain tissue doesn't work so well. As the swelling increases, the brain may try to push out and down and through this hole, through this foramen magnum, or herniate, it's called. So when that happens, then you have pressure on the spinal cord, the brain stem, and the functions that the brainstem control are the very basic functions: breathing, heart rate, and such. And so, just again, this is a very basic level, and that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about on the skull. We'll do more on various other anatomy areas coming up.